का हमारा बड़ा ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय है दोस्तों, लीगल कंप्लायंस फ्रेमवर्क कोऑपरेटिव हाउसिंग सोसाइटी। इस विषय पे आज हमारे कीनोट स्पीकर हैं, हाउसिंग सोसाइटी में काम करने वाले महासेवा के चेयरमैन, माई सोसाइटी क्लब के फाउंडर डायरेक्टर मिस्टर राजीव सक्सेना। राजीव सक्सेना जी हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं, उनका स्वागत करता हूँ। और दूसरा हमारा महत्वपूर्ण विषय दोस्तों है होलिस्टिक क्लाउड बेस्ड अकाउंटिंग सॉल्यूशन फॉर एवरी सोसाइटी टू नीड। मिस्टर रुचिर शाह, रुचिर शाह और रुचिर शाह का भी मैं स्वागत करता हूँ।
और जैसा कि शर्मा जी बोल रहे थे कि हम वेबिनार का आयोजन कर रहे हैं महासेवा और एमएनएस मीडिया के द्वारा, तो जितना ज्यादा से ज्यादा आप आपके जो आपका ग्रुप है, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप है, आपकी सोसाइटीज है, उनमें लोगों को फॉरवर्ड करेंगे, उतना ज्यादा इसका बेनिफिट लोगों तक पहुंचेगा। और यही महासेवा का एक मेन पर्पज है कि हम ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को एजुकेट कर सके अपने सोसाइटी के सब्जेक्ट्स के बारे में, विषय के बारे में, जिससे कि कमेटी मेंबर्स को और वहां पे रहने वाले लोगों को एक स्मूथ फंक्शन करने में सुविधा हो, जिससे कि अपने इश्यूज कम से कम हो। और हमारे पास में जो भी कुछ नए चीजें आती हैं, नया इनोवेटिव आइडिया आता है, वो हम आपके साथ में शेयर करते हैं। अगर आपने पिछले जो सालों के, पिछले कुछ महीनों के अगर हमारे सब्जेक्ट्स देखे होंगे, तो हम लोगों ने कन्वेंस के ऊपर बात किया, हम लोगों ने रीडेवलपमेंट के ऊपर बात किया, वी टॉक्ड अबाउट टिम्बर का यूज हम कैसे कर सकते हैं हमारे आज के कंस्ट्रक्शन में, उसके ऊपर एक इनोवेटिव टॉक के ऊपर हमने डिस्कशन किया। सोसाइटी के जो नए नए बाईलॉज में चेंजेस आए हैं, जो एमसीएस एक्ट में चेंजेस आए हैं, उसके बारे में डिस्कशन हमारा हुआ। तो ऐसे बहुत सारे सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जिस पर हम बात करते हैं, और एक ही उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को इसके बारे में हम अवेयर कर सके। तो ऐसे ही एक और सब्जेक्ट के बारे में आज हम बात करने वाले हैं, और वो है कंप्लायंस फ्रेमवर्क। हमारा लीगल फ्रेमवर्क सोसाइटीज में क्या है, और कौन कौन से ऐसे जो लॉज है जिसके बारे में हमें थोड़ा जानकारी होना जरूरी है सोसाइटीज में, जिससे कि हमारे कंप्लायंस इशू कम से कम हो। और आइडिया एक ही है कि जो हमारा जो कमेटी मेंबर है, जो इतना टाइम निकालते हैं सोसाइटी के काम के लिए, उनके ऊपर उसके नॉन कंप्लायंस इशू कम से कम आए। तो अगर हमें ये अवेयर होगा, अगर हमको मालूम है कि कौन सी चीज हमें कब करनी है, कैसे करनी है, और क्या क्या करनी है, अगर ये हमें मालूम रहे, तो हमारे नॉन कंप्लायंस के इशू कम हो सकते हैं, और जिससे कि सोसाइटी को बेनिफिट होगा, और जो हमारे अधिकारी लोग काम करते हैं, जो कमेटी मेंबर काम करते हैं, उनको ऊपर नॉन कंप्लायंस के इशू कम आएंगे। So with this, I am just starting my presentation. I'll share my PPT with all of you. आज जैसे हमारा टॉपिक है लीगल कंप्लायंस फ्रेमवर्क फॉर द कोऑपरेटिव हाउसिंग सोसाइटी, और दूसरा जो हम सब्जेक्ट पे बात करेंगे, होलिस्टिक क्लाउड बेस्ड अकाउंटिंग सोल्यूशन फॉर एवरी हाउसिंग सोसाइटीज नीड। हम किस टाइप का सॉफ्टवेयर आपको प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं जिससे कि आपका फंक्शनिंग सोसाइटी का एक बेहतर हो सके, अच्छा हो सके, उसके बारे में बात करेंगे। उसके लिए हमारे साथ स्पीकर है मिस्टर रुचिर शाह, who is the director cloud community business के लिए। As I told you, our topic is legal compliance. So multiple laws हैं जो हमारे हाउसिंग सोसाइटीज में एप्लीकेबल हैं, और उन पे हम बात करेंगे। ऑफ कोर्स हम हर लॉ को बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि समय की हमारे पास कमी है। तो हर लॉ को हम बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस नहीं करते, लेकिन जो एप्लीकेबल प्रोविजंस है, जो एप्लीकेबल, उस पर हम जरूर फोकस करेंगे। To start with, I will simply put a small quote which was done by Thomas Jefferson. What is it? Ignorance of the law is no excuse in any country. So if we tomorrow say कि boss मुझे पता नहीं था, is not an excuse for anybody. If it were, the law would lose their effects because it has always been patented. So अगर हम इसको एक्सेप्ट करते हैं कि चलो ठीक है, हमको लॉ के बारे में नहीं मालूम था, तो इसके लिए आपको एक्सक्यूज है, आपको क्षमा है, आपको कोई एक्शन नहीं होगा, तो फिर हर आदमी इसी चीज को लेके आगे बढ़ता रहेगा, और कभी भी लॉ को हम एनफोर्स नहीं कर सकते। तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि इग्नोरेंस ऑफ लॉ और प्रोविजंस इज नॉट एन एक्सक्यूज एज फार द लॉ इज कंसर्न, एज फार द कोर्ट इज कंसर्न, penal provisions are concerned. So what is important for all of us, that we should be eager to learn more, we should be eager to understand more how our laws are interpreted, how these are applicable in our society, and then we follow the provisions to ensure that there is no non-compliance. Now there are a couple of laws which are applicable. I'm sure this is of course basic for all the housing society as far as Maharashtra is concerned. So Maharashtra Cooperative Society Act 1960. Now of course there are rules which has to be now modified, amended post the new addition of Chapter 13 in the Maharashtra Cooperative Act 1960, where the special provision for housing society has been incorporated, and now it is much more clear what it was before. So that is, of course, we are awaiting the rules for the applicable law after the amendment. We have Income Tax Act 1961, which is also applicable to housing societies. So we will discuss about this, the applicable provision. The Central Goods and Service Act, which is applicable on housing societies, because 2017, we'll talk about it. There are also a couple of acts which are applicable in housing society, like Maharashtra Ownership Flat Regulation of the Promotion of Construction, Sales Management and Transfer Act 1963, what we call in short MOFA Act. We have a Development Control Regulation of Greater Mumbai 1991, and we all know in a short as a DCR rules, which is very, very important for the societies when typically they plan to go for redevelopment or the self-redevelopment. Then you have a Maharashtra Region and Town Planning Act 1966, which is MRTP Act. Now, MRTP Act is important for us to know because there are certain provisions which are there, which is required when you're handling the society. Typically, when it comes to encroachment of your common space, or somebody has used the elevator in front area, somebody has used the parking open area. So we will talk about that under which section you can really use this particular law. Then, of course, we have very, very famous and very, very the I would say the important act which has been brought in 2016 by the government of India, which calls about Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 1916, and we all call RERA. Specifically, when talk about Maharashtra, we call it MahaRERA. So these are a couple of acts and which we are going to talk, but what are we going to today focus? Of course, certain acts are applicable when we think about redevelopment, when we think about self-redevelopment. So we are not going to touch those particular provisions right now or the act, but these are the acts which are applicable when you talk about the legal framework. But what are we going to touch today is uh, the required registers which we are going to maintain under various laws applicable to the societies. We are going to talk about the accounts register, which are important for us to manage and maintain it. We'll talk about audit. We will talk about income tax and TDS deductions. We talk about GST compliance. So this is the framework on which today we are going to talk about it, and we are going to focus on our discussion. As you all know that the Maharashtra Cooperative Society Act 1960 got amended with a very special provision in the act and focusing housing society, which was not there prior to this amendment, and which has brought a very now broad spectrum in terms of the provision applicable for housing societies. There's a lot of confusion was there, a lot of the contradiction was there between the MCS Act and the bylaws, so which has been rectified now. But here we are still awaiting the rules, final rules, which are still to come, and for various reasons, which is known to everybody, this has been keep on postponing and expected that hopefully by March 21, we should be able to have the rules there. What we understand that rules has been drafted, has been discussed, and has been also almost cleared by the respective committee. But yes, till the time it comes, the it's published, we cannot say it is finalized. So various chapters are there under this new amended law, which talks about the registration, which talks about the members, the rights, the responsibility, what is the liability, talks about the incorporation duties, privilege of societies, state aided societies, then the property fund, how are going to utilize it. So that has been mentioned. Management of society affairs, audit, inquiry, inspection, and supervision. So multiple chapter has been incorporated in the act now. Then you talk about settlement of dispute, the liquidation in case society has to be closed, surrender, insurance of the cooperative bank, talk about cooperative agriculture and rural. So there's a separate provision has been brought it for these different type of society, because those cannot be compared when you talk about the housing society. So when you talk about bank, cannot be compared with housing society. There are certain provisions which are applicable for the bank, but may not be applicable for the housing society. So they have now segregated these all cooperative societies now. Then, of course, offense and penalty has been specified. Appeal, under what section one can go for an appeal. So these are the various chapters which has been brought into the new changes. So today, since the rules are not yet published, my presentation will have a mix of both. Whatever is available to us, we have captured. Whatever is not, we have to rely on the existing provisions. Now, the most important thing about the compliance perspective, when you say the section 154B(6) of the new amended act says that the education and training is a mandatory in the society. So if you are not doing it, one has to do it because it is now by law, it is required for one to maintain it, to do it. The very purpose is that you have to ensure that people are effectively participating in the management of society. We are able to groom the employees for the effective management. When you say employees, it could be the our own people. It could be employed by the society to manage a lot of activity in the society. So yes, all that is important. There has been a separate the amount which has been decided, and you need to collect that. You have to use that. You have to start collecting it. So let's say if you're not collecting it till now, when you do your AGM, next forthcoming AGM, you should start collecting it. This is the mandatory. So if you do not collect it, it becomes a violation of the provision of the MCS Act. Of course, then you have to use the fund for the purpose of training and education. So when you're collecting it, you cannot use it for anything else. You have to ensure that this is used for the cooperative movement activities in the society. This will be subject to the audit, subject to the verification, whether the fund has been collected, how much is collected, where you utilize. So it is required that you ensure that proper records are maintained. You have to ensure that the people who are involved into conducting training program are the authorized the body. They are someone who is on the panel of the registrar as it has been defined by the competent authority. So very important that who is conducting the program is very important. So you have to keep a record of that as well. Then another section which talks about the rights of the member. This was also there in the previous bylaws, though of course not specifically mentioned in the MCS Act, but of course there is a provision. I will short mention about the record rights, but here is very clearly mentioned now how you are going to provide the information and how much time you will need to do this activity. So if any member who puts up a request to society that they need certain documents, certain information from the society, it is a mandatory requirement of the society to provide the information within 45 days. But if it is the society which is basically maintained by the government, it is 30 days. Now, what all documents one can ask for, I'm sure you must be knowing it, is a copy of the Act, the rules, bylaws, audited balance sheets, the profit and loss account, the list of committee member, register of the member, minutes of the AGM or managing committee. All these information they can always ask for it. So sometimes what we have observed that society always hesitate to provide this information. They feel why should we give? The member may have certain intention. He may try to trouble the committee member. But now this is a requirement. It's a mandatory requirement. You have to provide this information, provided it falls within these category. Now, if someone is asking the information about another member who has no concern, yes, you always have a right to deny for it. That I can't provide you. So he can only ask the information which is related to his transaction or the portion where his transaction is being mentioned. So only those information he can always ask for it, and society is bound to provide this information, and that's why it's very important that we comply with these provisions. Another thing, what I have observed and seen that the putting a penalty is often we have seen somebody puts a 5,000 penalty, somebody puts a 2,000 rupees penalty. If somebody is not using or maintaining lift properly, they simply go and put the penalty. Now, there's a provision which is mentioned in the bylaws. I need to look at how this should be implemented. It's not that someone who has just done a one breach and you have imposed a penalty. So there's a process which says that you should give a show cause notice. So before putting a penalty, you have to give a show cause notice to the person who has been doing his breach persistently. So the once, twice, thrice. So if you're doing it, you have to give a show cause notice before putting a penalty or to the member. then it's not the committee who can decide. It's a general body meeting after hearing a say of the member, what he has to say. So you've given a show cause notice, let the member put his point also forward, because you have to ensure the principal justice. And after the hearing the member, one can put the fine which should not exceed 5,000 rupees in one financial year, an aggregate. So let's say if you have put up twice or thrice, the total amount on the member of penalty should not exceed 5,000 rupees. That's very, very important one has to understand. Of course, the AGM and SGM is authorized to say impose a penalty which should be reasonable and should be equal to all. Recently, I got a call from one of the member of the society, and he said, "Sir, can we put a fine for somebody throwing water or putting the water in the plants, because it is trying to like say spoil the exterior of the building?" I said, "Yes, you can do. The society has a right to do this." But he said, "No, our registrar has given an order saying that you cannot do it." Then asking further question, and then he said, "No, actually what happened, we have one of the member was putting the flower pot, the rose flower pots there, and he was putting waters, and then we have put up a fine because we have decided not to put, but we have allowed members to put a tulsi plant because they worship." Now what happens here? Is it equal to everybody? It's not equal. So you are allowing one person to put a tulsi plant, while the other person who is putting a maybe a flower pot, you are penalizing him. So it is not justified. It is not reasonable. It is not. It is biased action, and that is the reason the Russia has ordered not to put penalty, because you are not treating everybody same. If you're putting a fine for putting the water in the plant, it should be for anything, irrespective of what type of category you are using it, whatever plant you're having it. So that should not be the case. So it is very, very important when we look at the provision of penalty, we have to give a fair chance to the member. We have to ensure that it should be equal to everybody and there should not be biasness in our application. Well, of course, once you have a proper case, you have given enough opportunity to the member, you have given a show cause notice, it has been discussed in the meeting, then of course you have all the right to recover that money, that penalty from the member. And in case if it doesn't do it, then you have also an option to initiate the proceeding for recovery of dues under section 154(29). Another thing which often we have seen that people encroach the common area. Now, what is the common area? It could be staircase, it could be steps, it could be landing area, it could be parking space, lift corridors. Now, you must have seen in your building, you have a duct area, right? Now, duct area is also common area. Somebody puts up maybe a air conditioned plant outdoor unit in the duct area. It is the encroachment of the common area. Why? Because if tomorrow a society has to do a service, you have to do a repair, how the person will climb up, how he will go up. So it's a hindrance to the service, which is a common area. So nobody is allowed to use the common area which should be used by the society or should be used by all the members of that area. So nobody has a right to use that area. So obviously, you have the right to penalize that person, put a fine to that person, which is 5 times of your monthly maintenance per month. So if the maintenance is 2,000 rupees, you can put a penalty of 10,000 rupees till the time he is encroaching that area. So you have that right. You have given that right. He can do it. Now, besides this, if he's not understanding, not doing, still he's not removing his stuff from the common area, you still have an option to go against him in the respective corporation under the MRTP Act. Now that says under section 55, which says that anybody who's encroaching the common area, they are trying to complete temporarily covering that area, and you can move to the authority for the removal of whatever type of the construction he or she has done it. So you can always use that particular section of MRTP even for the encroachment. Now, a lot of time also we see that there is a fight which happens within the member and the shopkeepers. Now, shopkeepers basically they try to use that the open area which is there in front of the shop, and we say no, you can't use it. We put up a rent there. According to me, you can't put a rent for the open area. The moment you put a rent or you start collecting some type of maintenance for the open area, you are legalizing his right on that particular area. Unless he covers, if he covers the entire area, then again you have an option to go back to the authorities and say, boss, remove this, is not, you can't cover it, because the moment he does a covering, it is a violation of the FSI granted to the society. So let's say in front of the shop, you have a 6 feet of open area, the otla, what we normally call, and if someone tries to cover it with the proper grill, doors, and everything, then it is a violation of the FSI, and you can always take an action if needed. But yeah, if you are in cooperation and if you are permitting everybody, that's your choice. But yes, legally one can always move forward and take the action accordingly. Now, of course, there are multiple registers, which I'm sure you all must be knowing, so I don't have to spend too much of time, but still, uh, some societies are not keeping all the register. So, of course, I register, I'm sure everybody must be keeping, J, everybody must be keeping it, which talks about the right of member, register of member, talks about the list of members, party register. You have a share certificate register where you have to incorporate the share which has been issued to the member. In case of the shares have been transferred or added more shares, then you have to put all the information there. You have a nomination register, very, very important, and you need to have it without any fail. You need to keep on updating it. My request to all the people who are attending this seminar today, please ensure that person members submit the nomination to you. It is going to save your life. It is going to ensure that you work smoothly in the society. To ensure that everybody submits the nomination. Sinking fund register, very, very important. I'm not sure how many people are aware about it, that there's a requirement as per the bylaws that at the end of the month, society is supposed to issue a certificate to the member stating that what is the total accumulated sinking fund they are holding it. That's a requirement as per the bylaws. But I'm sure a lot of people must not be following this. It's not possible practically, so that's the reason people are not doing it. But that's one of the requirement. Then you have an asset membership register. Yes, now if you remember if you know, in the recent the updates, the definition of associate member has been changed. Earlier, even my friend can be associate member. My neighbor can be my associate member. The definition has been changed. We have to go with the revised definition. So please go back, check your the forms, ensure that every member who have submitted the asset membership form, and if the person who is the asset member is not falling in those 13 definition, please ask him to resubmit the form and take it on the record. It's very, very important. You have to ensure it. Then you have, of course, mortgage and loan register. So you have property member go for the home loan against the property, and they sometimes mortgage the property for their business loans and all. So we should have a register which should indicate which all property has been mortgaged. Why it is important? Because, for example, tomorrow if you are not there, you move out from the committee, a new committee comes in, they should know how many property has been mortgaged with the bank. If the loan is completed, we should ensure that you obtain a loan closure document from the members and clear the lien on the property in the loan register. That's very, very important. Tomorrow, if you have to give say NOC to a member or to the bank about the property is clear and marketable, and if by chance you have not noticed that this property is already mortgaged with someone, is a society who will be held responsible that the property was already mortgaged with the bank, and in spite of that, the society has issued a no claims document. So very, very important register, and one has to ensure it is to be maintained without fail. You have also managing committee register. Most of the people, I'm sure, are maintaining it, keeping a track of every month one meetings. Now, of course, during the COVID period, there was a lot of challenges for conducting the monthly managing committee meeting. So there has been a notification by the Commissioner of Cooperation where they have allowed us to conduct the monthly managing committee meeting over the digital media, digital platform, the Zoom or Google Meet or Cisco, whatever medium you have, you can always use that. Of course, there's still a lot of discussion happening whether we can still conduct the AGM on the Zoom. Having said, there's no restriction which has been published by the authority that you cannot conduct the meeting via Zoom. But of course, a lot of people are trying to restrict them conducting the meeting on Zoom. But there are options where you can conduct your AGM, because nobody says that you can't conduct the AGM. You can conduct the AGM. They have said it is extended till 31st of this March 2021. But if you wish to conduct the AGM, you can conduct. You have an option to conduct the AGM, ensure the social distancing, and the people who cannot participate in the meeting, you can take a resolution in the meeting and ask member to join over the WhatsApp. So there will be physical meeting, and also some member who cannot join physically, they can join over Zoom or the any other platform. That's how you can conduct your AGM as well. So you have to keep the register of your general body meeting as well, which is very important. And it is good if every year you can take the register to the registrar office, talk to them, take an appointment, and get those verified and signed. It's very important. If you can do this, it's going to add a lot of value to your work and can avoid a lot of the issues in future. You have also a tenant register which can be maintained, and of course is not mandatory as per the law, but if you're keeping this record, it's going to help you to keep a check as to who all were stayed in that particular building when maybe after 5 years, 6 years, if you need to know. So yes, very important. You can keep this register. Vehicle register, because a lot of vehicles are moving in and out happening in the society. People are purchasing new vehicles, selling the old one. Keep a track of it. It's very important. Inventory register, very important register is from the accounting perspective, because you have to keep a proper depreciation status of your assets. So unless you have the inventory of your asset, the, for example, water pump you have, how much sound system you have, the chairs you have, furniture what you have in the society office, or any other equipment. If you have a gym, then gym equipment. If you have pool, then pool, the motors and all. Keep a proper record of your asset when you purchase. As if you're disposing of any asset, keep a record that you've disposed of the asset. And this is a very important because you need to calculate the depreciation on your assets. Another thing is very important is your investment register. So we have been taking a lot of FDs in the bank. It could be a repair fund FD, it could be a maintenance fund FD, it could be your sinking fund FD. So you have to have an investment register which says that you have taken an FD on so and so date, got matured on so and so date, and that fund, that FD was again taken back or renewed again. So you need to keep a complete track of your FD, your investments, and that's a very important for you to keep the investment register. Well, in terms of accounts, now of course most of the people, I think everybody is doing the accounting which is on this system. Most of the societies are using Tally, or some of the societies are using the software like mysocietyclub.com what we have. So there you can have all this information in your digital format. So your bank register, your cash register, journal entries, your income expense, receipt and payment, report, balance sheet, investment register. So all these are available in the digital format. You can keep a record of that, or at the end of the financial year, once you finalize your balance sheet, take the printout, get it binded, and keep a copy of this in your society office. So you can always do that. Now, of course, audit. Now, when I'm talking about the dates and other thing is based on the normal circumstances. COVID is not considered here, because what I'm saying is a regular phenomena which should happen every year without any exception. This year, due to pandemic, has been very exception for all of us. So the deadlines has been changed. The submission has been changed. So I'm not talking about this specific particular period, but as a whole, the finalization of account has to be completed by month 15th of May. You should finish it off. Try to see that if you can be able to hand over your the accounts to the auditor by 1st of June. So you'll have enough time for him to complete his audit. And normally by 31st of July, one has to complete the audit, so that you are able to put up in the committee meeting, discuss about your final balance sheet, and then call for an AGM. Final audit upload has to be by 31st of August. Then you have to call for an AGM, which has to be by 30th of September, which is known to everybody. But now it has been extended till 31st of March 2021. So you still have a lot of time. Mandatory annual return to be filed by the society by 30th September. So since you finish your AGM before 30th September, you have an option to file the returns on the cooperation side by 30th September. Then you have to ensure that the return of the society for appointing the auditor has to be by 31st of October, since you are conducting your the AGM before 30th September. You will be knowing that you have to appoint the auditor, so you can do that. Online audit order generation by auditor. So once you finalize your the appointment of auditor in the AGM, you have to let him know so that he can generate it online. Because if he doesn't upload this information into the cooperation side, what happened? The registrar feels that for this society, auditor has not been appointed, and then registrar has an option to appoint the auditor for your society. It's very important that you appoint the auditor in your AGM, and after your appointment, inform your auditor so that he can upload this information to the site. Audit rectification report by the society 3 months from the date of submission of the report by the auditor. So there's an audit rectification report which has to be submitted in the form O. That has to be seen and submitted to the auditor after the discussion on the audit points. Rectification report uploaded by the auditor through audit login. Again, this is very important that after you submit your audit rectification report to the auditor, he has to go back and submit the same to the cooperation site. This is very important, and non-compliance is a breach of the bylaws. So that's very important. Auditor will verify the register maintained by the society. Hence, committee members should maintain register, as we mentioned in the previous slide. So, very important that we need to look at these documents and update as and when it is needed. Now, I'll focus a couple of points on the income tax. Sometimes we feel that the society doesn't fall under the income tax provision. But if you look at the section 2 of 31, it will very clearly define who is covered under the audit. The definition very clearly mentioned. It includes an association of person, say AOP, or body of individual, whether incorporated or not. So all that is covered under the income tax. Income tax laws are very clear and transparent. Now, section 139 of the Income Tax Act says that up to 10,000, if you have the income, it is taxable. So this means that even from rupees 1 till rupees 10,000, the income of the society is taxable. You need to file your returns. If there is no income, there is a loss, you still need to file your returns to the income tax authorities. Various slabs which are there. So 10,000 tax slab is 10% of total income. Then 10,000 to 20,000 is 20%, and then it keeps on going up. The slabs are available when you look at the Income Tax Act. The slabs are there. It keeps on changing every budget. So you need to look at what is the updated one. So one has to pay. There's no exemption to the societies that you should not pay the income tax. It is required. 30 September of the following year, you complete your audit, you complete your the balance sheet audit and everything by 30 September, you complete your AGM by 30 September. So you have to also file your returns by 30 September of the following year. That's very important, along with your TDS information and all. If you're not able to file by then you have an option to file by 31st March of the subsequent year, which is the ITS belong. You don't have to file, put up any fine. But the delay of society has to pay mandatory 5,000 rupees if it is not filed beyond December. So if you're not filed beyond December, you have to pay 5,000 rupees for all the delay. But the fee will be 10,000 rupees if delay goes beyond December of the next financial year. So it's very important we file at least by December our returns to be filed so that we avoid these type of penalties to societies. TDS is again a very important, and again I'm not referring what is the current TDS rate, because the current TDS rate has changed because of the COVID. There has been a special exemption given. It has been changed. So what I was saying here, that society is supposed to deduct from the payment. So a lot of societies must be making the payment towards the security, the housekeeping. They must be buying certain things, lift repairs, and you need to recover the TDS. If you're not doing it, it is a non-compliance, and you have to ensure that you should deduct the TDS. Sometimes the problem what happens, we feel if we start collecting the TDS, we have to ensure the compliance in terms of the returns to be filed. We have to pay 4,000, 3,000 rupees to someone for filing. But it's very important. And if you don't think this is important, start non-compliancing. So non-compliance will tell you how important compliance is. Now, if you look at the return filing is on quarterly basis. So first quarter, which is April to June, you have to file the returns by 31st of July. And every 7th of the next month, you have to remit the TDS deducted to the treasury. Second quarter by 31st October, then third quarter by January, and fourth quarter by 31st of May. These are the quarter by which you have to file your returns on the quarterly basis. You need to recover on monthly basis, but file the returns on a quarterly basis. Now, if you don't file the returns on quarterly basis, there's a penalty which is about 200 rupees per day. So sometime it may happen that your amount of deduction is less, but you have to pay more penalty because there's a delay in filing the returns. So you have to ensure that you file your returns on time. So this on TDS. Now let's move on the GST. Again, I think a lot of debate on the GST was happening. If we see, since I'm also the part of a lot of WhatsApp group, I keep seeing a lot of discussion happening whether the GST is applicable to society, and if not, what is the limit and all those things. So let me quickly cover. If the turnover of the housing society is above 20 lakh, it needs to take registration under GST in terms of Section 22 of the GST Act. However, taking registration does not mean that housing society has to compulsorily charge GST in the monthly maintenance bill raised to the member. Now, very clearly mentioned, and there's a notification for this which says that just taking the number does not mean that you need to charge compulsorily to all the member, whether they are above the ceiling of 750 or less than 7,500, or they are less than 7,500. So you can always take it because it's going to help you. You can always save your expenses. So let's say when you're tomorrow paying some tax to GST to some of your service provider, you can get the benefit of that amount. I'll tell you how this will be taken care of. Service by an unincorporated body or a non-profit body entity registered under any law for the time being in force to its own member by way of reimbursement of the charges or share of contribution are covered. Who all are there? Like trade union, they are covered. For the provision of carrying out any activity which is exempted from the levy of goods and service tax, or up to an amount of 7,500 rupees per month per member for sourcing of goods or services from a third person for the common use of the member in a housing society or a resident complex. So if you go by the point number C, you are covered. The studies are covered under the GST. And if your amount exceeds 7,500, you are supposed to recover the GST from the member. In case it's less, then of course you don't have to collect GST. But always, if it's more, then you have to collect. There was also a discussion whether we need to collect in the entire 7,500 or 8,000 or 9,000. So if you look at it, what it says, for example, if your total maintenance bill comes 9,000 rupees, you only need to collect on 1,500. You don't have to collect on the entire 9,000 GST because up to 7,500 is exempted. So only on the amount which is exceeding 7,500 you need to collect the. Certain questions are there which will clarify your doubt in terms of when you have to calculate the limit of 7,500. So the question remains in the mind that the society collects the following charges from the member on quarterly basis as follows. Property tax actual as per the municipal corporation or Greater Mumbai or respective corporation. Water tax as per the corporation. Non-agriculture tax, electricity charges, sinking fund, repairs and maintenance fund, car parking, non-occupancy charges, simple interest for the late payment, and from the tax charges as listed above, or any which GST is not applicable. So this is question, what all is basically chargeable and what all not chargeable. So if you look at it, the service provided by the central government, state government, union territory or local authority to a person other than business identity is exempted from GST. So property tax or water tax, if collected by the RWA or Cooperative Housing Society on behalf of the MCGM or other organization from individual flat owner, the GST is not applicable. Similarly, GST is not leviable on non-agricultural tax, electricity charges, which are collected under other statute of individual flat owner. However, if these charges are collected by the society for generation of electricity, so now understand very clearly. Now, some of the places they are generating the electricity. using the generator set, and then they are collecting the money on account of illicit charges, then that is chargeable under the GST. But if they are collecting on behalf of the MSEB or the say Best or the Reliance or Adani, then it is not chargeable. Sinking fund, repair and maintenance fund, car parking charges, non-occupancy charges, simple interest, late payment, all that attracts your. The question which says it, do I need to collect the GST on, is only on the amount, the heads which I have mentioned here: sinking fund, repair fund, maintenance fund, car parking, non-occupancy, late payment charges, all will attract in, your GST. Now, of course, there was also discussion happening whether by implementing GST, it has become more expensive for the societies. So let's look at it. There have been a lot of discussion which was there in the press and media, and which says now if you look at the detail of the entire thing, earlier when you has to pay the service tax, you were not able to take the benefit of service tax. But what happens in the post regime of GST? Whatever you are paying to the your service provider, whether it could be a security guy, it could be a housekeeping, lift maintenance guy, you are able to take the input credit of GST. So that way you are trying to save your expenses. You're not increasing the expenses. So it is not that you are incurring the cost, but it is going to be in fact the to the society. That's how is the total GST applicable, but it's a long subject. Maybe we'll have to need to take a separate the discussion, and maybe the seminar for this subject. This is what I just explained to you in short. I'll forward this PPT to all of you, so you can always keep this and have more discussion. So, well, this was my today's thought. I thought maybe we'll share with everybody, and with this, I can complete my session.